Hi guys, Sci-Fi Recapped here. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm gonna explain a 2021 Japanese science fiction movie, called The Door into Summer. The movie begins with a young man, named Soichiro Takakura, who just lost both of his parents. Soichiro never felt lonely as he found a friend named Pete. Soon later, both of them were taken in by his father's friend, named Koichi, who also has a daughter, named Riko Matsushita. Soichiro learns mechanical engineering from Koichi. Unfortunately, both of his parents then pass away because of a plane crash. Riko is then taken by her uncle, Kazuto. In March 1, 1995, Soichiro just invented artificial general intelligence robots called A1 and it's being developed by his uncle's company, Future Works Enterprise or short as FWE. At the same time, the snow starts to fall and Pete asks Soichiro to open all the doors in the house as he looks for summer to come. Meanwhile, Riko visits and do houseworks for him, but unfortunately, she will move away from the city soon, meaning that she won't be able to visit her brother often. Because A1 is a success, he is starting his late father's project. The project is a plasma battery to which machines won't have to be recharged anymore. Suddenly, his girlfriend and also Kazuto's assistant, named Rin Shiraishi, also visits him to give him some documents to sign. However, Riko seems unhappy with Shiraishi then leaves. The document contains FWE stock assignment from Soichiro himself to Shiraishi. Even though it is mostly a decision from Kazuto, Soichiro agrees and signs the documents without hesitation. Shiraishi then kisses him feeling grateful. A week later, Soichiro urgently comes to the main office where he meets Kazuto. Kazuto then suddenly starts a special shareholders meeting. He wants to release all of A1 projects to Manix Enterprises, and stop all of the current development for A1. Soichiro refuses saying that A1 isn't ready yet. Suddenly, Shiraishi suggests that they vote for the proposal, and she votes for the proposal to be executed. The results is final and it turns out Soichiro has been set up by them. His connection to the company is terminated, and he is also forbidden to use all of the company's facilities and equipment. He rushes back to his house just to find that all of the equipment has been taken away by the company. Not long after, Riko comes to visit Soichiro again, only to find that he is in a state of despair, because he lost everything again. Riko then suggests herself to stay and helps her brother, but Soichiro already gives up and says that she's just a kid and can't help him in any way. Riko then leaves him. At the same time, he finds a Kratos cold sleep brochure, a company which can let a person sleep for 5 to 30 years. He brings Pete and immediately goes to the place. There, he decides to take the program for him and Pete. He also assigns his shares from FWE to Riko. After the examination, the doctor finds that his blood alcohol is over the limit and rejects his proposal to get the program. The doctor then schedules the re-examination for the next day and tells him to rethink his decision. Later that night, Soichiro flashbacks to his happy moments spent with Riko. Because of that, he thinks giving up is not the way and he decides to confront Shiraishi and Kazuto once again. Meanwhile, Riko arrives at Kazuto's house. She overhears that Kazuto and Shiraishi plan to complete the A1 and plasma battery with other engineers. Riko immediately goes upstairs and calls Soichiro but it directs to voicemail. Kazuto approaches Riko but she says it was her friend and runs to Soichiro's house. Kazuto checks the last call and realizes it was not Riko's friend and runs to get Riko. Meanwhile, Shiraishi receives a call from Soichiro, asking for her location. Arriving there, Soichiro states that he will see a lawyer to disclose everything to ruin the company's reputation. Shiraishi eventually yielded, but suddenly she drugs Soichiro. She takes Soichiro's bag and Pete comes to his aid and creates a mess in the room. Suddenly, a window breaks, which Pete runs to the direction, and a pickup truck drives away from the house. While asking Soichiro about the truck, she spots Soichiro's cold sleep program and it gives her an idea. Sometimes later, Soichiro gains consciousness, but now he is inside the cryo sleep pod owned by Manix Enterprises. As she explains how she managed to get the program, the cryo sleep pod starts to activate and Soichiro is forced to sleep. Soichiro wakes up 30 years later, where he's very puzzled and meets the doctor that looks like the doctor he met from 30 years ago. Turns out the current doctor is not the same person as the doctor from 30 years ago as his father. Soichiro immediately looks for Pete the cat, but the one who comes is Pete, a humanoid robot that is assigned to take care of him. Pete brings him to his room where he'll be staying for 5 days. Since Pete is a robot, Soichiro assumes that the robot will execute his commands. He commands Pete to tell the person in charge that he wants to leave right now. Pete then leaves but says such a pain, which surprises Soichiro. At night, Soichiro is informed that there are no assets to his name, as Mannix went bankrupt. He is also given Riko's address as Riko repeatedly calls the company to inquire about his awakening. The next day, Soichiro runs away from the hospital, bringing his cassette player and wallet with him. He goes to the taxi stand but can't find any taxi there. Pete suddenly comes and tells him that people must use an app to call a taxi. Soichiro is very confused as there's no driver as the taxi is now fully automatic. Soichiro commands Pete to get out, but he refuses, saying that he has just escaped, and he is defective. Pete threw his wallet because in the current era, all transactions use mobile. Pete also says that he follows Soichiro because he understands that Soichiro is the one who designed the robot. They arrive at the address given where they find the room is so dirty and messy. Turns out it's Shiraishi who gives the address. She tells him that Kazuto died 1 year after his cryo sleep and she spent time in prison because there's a mysterious man exposing her for evading taxes. She also tells Soichiro that the night when he was drugged, his house burned and Riko was nowhere to be found. Soichiro then assumes Riko is dead and mourns at her grave. After that, Soichiro remembers how Pete the cat always looks for the door into summer even though snow just started to fall. Then he is motivated to look for the door, which means the mysterious man that Shiraishi mentioned and Riko's death. With Pete's help, they eventually find out that FWE was acquired by Guardian Manufacturing. Suddenly, Pete gets ready to activate sleep mode and explains that sleep mode is where a robot goes into a state of self-regenerative mode. Soichiro then asks Pete to show the battery, which he does, and turns out the source of energy is from the plasma battery. Pete is a product from Aladdin Industry, one of the dominating humanoid robot markets. The next day, they go to visit the Guardian Company. There, Pete tries to ask one of the female robots out, but gets rejected. Soichiro also gets rejected to see the president, but suddenly the robot allows them to see the president. The president, Gota, is very glad to see Soichiro and seems like he knows Soichiro from long ago, as he shows Soichiro the book signed by himself. Gota also says that Soichiro gives him an exclusive about the plasma battery. After that, Gota tells him that he went to meet Professor Toy and signed the book for him at the same place a long time ago. They then see a news recording about Professor Toy embezzling money to fund his research that is called Time Transfer Machine. Despite all that, Soichiro is puzzled and can't remember anything. He then assumes that there is someone using his identity to complete the plasma battery. They go back to Gota, where he finds the stock was assigned to Sato Taro, one of the founders of Aladdin. Pete also finds the one who invented the first robot model was Soichiro himself, and the patent attorney was Sato Taro. Then, he finds the second model inventor was Riko Sato. From all the things they found, Soichiro connects everything and finally realizes something. The following day, they visit Professor Toy, who is also very glad to see him. He asks Soichiro to get back to 30 years ago as he already completed the time transfer machine perfectly. Turns out the mastermind behind all of the events is Soichiro himself. Professor Toy also gives them gold to fund his research for his past self. Soichiro then gives farewell to Pete. The machine starts to activate, but then Pete rushes to him and they are transferred to the past. Soichiro wakes up a day before A1 finishes and meets a man who introduces himself as Sato Taro. Taro cashed out the gold Soichiro brought back from the future and already knows everything as Pete told him everything. Taro lives with his wife, named Midori. At night, they plan everything that must be done, and after that, Soichiro starts to work on the plasma battery blueprint. The next day, he immediately goes to visit Professor Toy in a restaurant. He gives all the money to Professor Toy, who rejects it, but eventually accepts the money after explanation from Soichiro. After that, the shop owner's son, who turns out to be Gota, watches Soichiro on the news as an inventor and asks for his hand sign. Later that night, Taro tells Soichiro that Midori got into an accident a few years ago, then lost her ability to use her legs. After that, Soichiro asks for Taro's service again, that is to expose Shiraishi for tax evasion to take down Mannix Enterprises. Then all the stock shares will be given to Taro as he will become the president of the new company, which he later named Aladdin. Soichiro also asks a favor to let Riko stay with them. Time passes, then the day where Soichiro got tricked by the company comes. Pete rushes to stop the truck that contains Soichiro's equipment. He gets hit by the truck but it doesn't stop him. Shocked in fear, the driver runs away from the scene. Meanwhile, Soichiro finishes the blueprint, and then rushes to Kazuto's house. He cracks the window and takes Pete the cat away with him. He takes Pete and rushes to meet Riko, who is looking for him after overhearing Kazuto's conversation. At the same time, Pete arrives and he burns his house where he spent most of his time. They then drive to Taro's house, and Soichiro introduces Riko to Sato's family. After that, he says goodbye to his beloved sister and also to Pete, who also will be waiting for his return. The next day, the future Soichiro takes Pete the cat and goes to cryo to take the cold sleep program. Since then, Riko studies hard and also becomes an inventor. 10 years after that, she also takes a cold sleep program. 30 years later, Soichiro wakes up and meets again with Pete and Pete the cat. In the end of the movie, Soichiro is informed about Riko's condition, who also just wakes up from cryo sleep. In the end of the movie, Soichiro rushes to meet Riko, and they once again reunite. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.